Namamaseo.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Become the best instructor you're meant to be.
Exercise for a sense of community.
Founder and CEO of TRX.
You've done that. You've won somebody over forever.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. Welcome to our AFAA Facebook Live. We'll also be on Instagram, but I'm so happy you joined us. We have a really cool topic as a follow-up to last week's Facebook Live. Our topic this week is I'm AFAA certified, now what? Okay, how to go from certification to classroom teaching. So I'm Angie Miller. I'm an AFAA Mentor and NASM Master Instructor, and I also teach continuing education workshops. And I have Linda Magee, who has become a friend, and she is a longtime AFAA Master Instructor, and she also teaches continuing education workshops. So Linda, say hey.
Hey there. Thanks so much for having me again. I'm so excited to be back.
All right, awesome. So yeah, last week we talked about how to pass the exam. And then once you pass the exam, it's like, okay, now what, right? Because there's a huge step between book knowledge and then getting out there in front of a huge community of people. And I do mean a massive step, okay? So I have some incredible footage of me when I first got out in front of people, and I worked with a mentor, and she did some videotaping of me, and my hair looked quite a bit different. And my moves look a lot different from the moves I would teach today. But we are going to talk about how you apply science and all this stuff that you learned in the book. How do you apply that and put together a real live class? And that's huge. You know, I've taught like half-day workshops on this, full-day workshops on this. So we're going to give you the down and dirty 30-minute version of how to go from a testing center to a classroom. What do you think, Linda?
Sounds like a great plan, and I can't wait to help everybody out there.
All right, good. So first we're going to talk about where do you get quality information, right? Because it's kind of the Wild West out there on the internet. So where are you going to go to get quality information? And then we're going to talk about what to do when you begin actually creating a class. And then third, we're going to talk about how do you put it all together. So again, this is a lot of content because this would be something that we would do in a full day workshop or a half day workshop. But we're just going to kind of give you the main pointers, and then Linda and I are always available for questions. We both taught group fitness for years and years and years, and what we don't know, we'll just make up. No.
I think that's one of the tips.
Yeah, make up what you don't know. Fake it till you make it. That is.
Fake it till you make it, baby.
Yeah, that's right. So where do you go for quality information? Well, you know, Linda and I, we processed all this out. We both taught university students, and so we're both very directive in our tasks. And so we kind of laid it out like a syllabus. But one of the things that we talked about was get a mentor. So even way back when I feel like you were kind of thrown to the wolves more than you are now, I had that person. I had that person who taught at a health club, and she picked me up off the floor and said, I think you should teach group fitness, back when I was making $8 a class. And she said, you know, come on in and I'll work with you. And that was the footage that I have. So I think mentors are huge. Maybe it's your favorite group fitness instructor. Maybe it is, I don't know, but find a mentor, somebody that you really respect who does great classes, and see if they can help you out, right?
Absolutely. And that's kind of how I got started too. Had somebody really kind of plugging me along in an internship and just bit by bit added me in. And it was just really nice to be bouncing ideas off of somebody that you really respect.
Very cool. A group fitness internship. Fantastic. So yeah, mentors are huge, and honestly, I don't know a single instructor who wouldn't be flattered if you went up to them and you were like, will you work with me to help me be a group fitness instructor? That is like, it's like giving me a piece of pie. Like, that's the best thing. Like, that would make me feel amazing if somebody thought that my classes were so good that they wanted to learn from me. I'd be all about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And to feel like you're kind of giving back. And that some of that brings us to even our next point that we had talked about was, taking other people's classes and just seeing what really kind of speaks to you. Who do you really connect with that you'd like to almost mimic, not copy, because we are our own people. But what are some things that you're finding out about all these different styles of classes and what really works for you? Leadership styles, cueing, can you really follow along that individual without looking like you've never been in that class before?
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because that's one of my big things that I steal from people now is it's less about choreography and it's more about cues that they give. Because I always say that you could say a cue 700 times and then you say it differently one time and everybody's like, that's it. So you just sometimes words make a big difference, and how we take in information and what people hear. Sometimes we have to say it differently in order to resonate with that person's learning style.
Absolutely. I know even sometimes in cueing, if I switch cues around and they'll do something, I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, we're doing exactly what you asked us to do. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So I guess that can work both ways, but definitely hearing other people's cues, I take them all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, so go for information and choreography. And like Linda said, go for leadership styles. See if this person makes you want to be in the room. Are they charismatic? Are they a really strong leader? And really just kind of watch the way that they interact with their people, the way that they lead a class, and decide, what do I want to take away? And sometimes what we take away is not always positive. I mean, I've been to classes before where I'm like, but guess what? That was as much of a learning experience as it was if it was an incredible class, because those are the things then that I know I don't want to take away, right?
Exactly.
So the other one that we talked about is going to conferences. And we have to tell you about Optima because Linda and I are both teaching at Optima. And so, go to conferences. Conferences are huge. And I know that this year we're doing it virtually, but you know what? We can connect virtually the way that we can connect if we were live. But, if you do decide to go to Optima, there is a discount code. It's speaker 159. And that means you can go to the conference for $159. But go to conferences. And you know what? This year is actually the perfect year to go to conferences. You don't have to pay for hotels. You don't have to pay for airfare. Your cost is way less prohibitive than it was in the past. You could attend every conference and maybe not even spend what you would have spent if you would have attended one conference and had to add airfare and everything else.
Yep, absolutely. I know I've been taking a lot more continuing ed all summer and into the fall as well, but Optima is going to be awesome. So
I think so too. I think so too. So the other one is the AFAA Continuing Education series that is online. There's the Fitness Instructor Essentials. There is Practical Modality Instruction. There is Kickboxing Skills and Drills, and there's Group Resistance Training. So AFAA also has online content that you can learn from. And again, if the takeaway, even if you take one class and you walked away with one perfect cue, or you took a class and you walked away with one move, or you listened to one of these online contents, you're always going to have a takeaway, good or bad. You're always going to learn something.
Yeah. And, I just can't wait though till some of the live stuff comes back. So even though AFAA does have some of those great online continuing ed series, we do offer the live workshops that basically goes over all those practical skills, some of them that we're going to be touching on today. But those are just so great. So we're shut down until at least the end of the year, but keep watching for those. It's just another great avenue to be utilizing. So So even if we can't do that, we can do the online. And of course, the book that you purchased for the exam has some excellent materials in them. And then of course, with NASM, if you pick up one of their books, again, just a whole library full of exercises that you can look at and decide whether they're good for your group of people.
Absolutely. And the great thing about the textbooks, the AFAA textbook, the NASM CPT workshop, or the CPT book, is that it shows you the exercises, and then it actually tells you how to coach and cue the exercises. So, you really understand what muscle group are you working, how are you doing it? And then you've got some coaching and teaching cues that really make a big, big difference. So we also talked about the NASM Edge personal trainer app. That's a great app. And then you actually visually see the exercises being played out. So that's a good app.
It is. I love using it. I use it with some of my clients, and just gives a really nice library of different exercises. And on it, you can actually pick, you just want some upper body exercises with barbells, or you need core work, or you want balance exercises. You can narrow it down to what you specifically want. It really is a nice app, and I'm very visual, so I love the videos that they have on there, and they're a quick 30 seconds.
Yeah, I do too. And there is a lot of apps out there. We're not going to talk about all the apps that are out there, because at the end of the day, it's very user specific. You might know of an app that is super engaging for you. It really works for you. I think our main thing on this is be careful where you get your information, right? Make sure it's a quality source, make sure it's a quality app, make sure it resonates with the type of people that you're going to teach to. And, there used to be, Linda and I were talking about, there used to be an app called turnstep.com. And back in the days when I taught a lot of step, I would go on there, and it was the cutest little thing, because it wasn't even an app, it was a website, and it had like little feet, and the little feet would move. And I'd be like this, trying to figure out how little feet were going.
And that website is still up and running. And the funny thing is, it's no longer just step on there. It's got cycling, it's got high-low, it's got strengthening. So it still lives on, believe it or not.
That's so funny. The way that I would contort my body to try to figure out where those feet were going was insane. But even if you go to a website and you see someone's choreography and you're like, whoosh, that is crazy, that's okay. Maybe you get one move from it. I mean, we are the ones who get to determine what we use and don't use. So a lot of times I always just call it, feeding the brain with information, and we can determine whatever it is that we want to take in and use, right?
Right. And a lot of times people are posting on there something like so cool, but you don't realize that it actually took them a whole class to teach somebody that combination. So break down what you need to, and just, take pieces of it. You don't have to take one whole phrasing or something that they have.
Right, exactly. And milk it. I mean, we get bored easily, but they do not. So milk it. Take a 32 count thing and milk it. You know what? Do it to 4 corners of the room. Do it on the right side. Do it on the left side. Add arms. There's so many ways that we can take 132 count block of choreography and make it last and last and last. It's like trying to eat a cookie slow. You just got to really enjoy the process. I've never been successful at that. So then let's talk about what to do to create a class. Okay. So the 4 components, when I teach a workshop, I talk about the modality. So the type of format that you're going to be teaching. I talk about musicality, because I don't know if you're going to teach to music. I personally am one of those instructors who, when somebody says to me, well, the music's just going to be background, I'm like, no, it's not. So if there's music playing, my body needs to move to the beat. That's just the way that it is. But maybe you're not that way. Then we're going to talk about choreography, and we're going to talk about cueing. Those 4 big kind of components that go into creating a class. So I'll let you start with modality, Linda.
Okay. And there's definitely a lot more modalities than when you and I first started that are out there. So, maybe you're looking at specifically just some strength training, and maybe you just like and love using kettlebells, or, it depends what you have either in your home at these times or in the gym, but body weight training, but any kind of strength training. you might do some type of dance, whether it's specifically something licensed like Zumba, or it's just a high-low kind of a thing, or all high impact. And then you've got Bar's really kind of taken over. So those are great. Step, Bosu, cycle, circuit. We have all our different mind-body exercises. And now, of course, we've got so much fusion happening, right? Where people will combine modalities. So, personally, I think that's fine to do as long as you feel competent in teaching the modalities that you're fusing together.
Yes.
Right.
And as far as modality goes, the whole intention of talking about modality is, and we're going to get into it, we get into musicality, is, are you beat driven or not? Because if you're not beat driven, probably teaching a bar class is not going to be the best. But if you're not beat driven, yeah, you could do kettlebells, right? You could do maybe a body weight strength training class, but you're probably not going to do a dance class. So modality has everything to do with who you are as a presenter, as a person who teaches classes. That modality really has to speak to you. I have definitely found over the years that I can't fit a square peg in a round hole. So, I have a yoga background, but I don't have a dance background. So I can teach enough bar to be dangerous, but I'm not going to be your best bar person. Okay. Now I love me some kettlebells, so I can swing kettlebells all day long. But even when I teach kettlebells, I teach a beat driven kettlebell class. I use a beat that rhythmically works along with my movements.
Yeah. So I tell people they're either beat driven or they're beat challenged, and either one's fine. But, if you're beat challenged, boot camp might be a better option for you.
Yeah. And you know what? There's no shame in that. The whole thing is embrace who you are. Embrace the type of class that you want to teach. Maybe you've come from the personal training world, and you really want to teach smaller groups or bigger groups, but the beat is not, that's not your jam. So you don't want to, yeah. So, think about modality, and then we're going to get into musicality, because, if you are going to be beat driven, purchase your music, purchase the 32 count phrasing. Because back when I had my big hair and I first started teaching and I did some weird moves, nobody made our music. We had to make our own music. And so there was what was 32 count phrasing. I mean, the music would constantly skip a beat, or it would do the do kind of thing. And we actually had to make our own and then put it on cassette tapes, because I'm 24, but I'm before my time. So we made our own, we put it on cassette tapes, and I'll be darned if it didn't mess you up every time you taught. So when 32 count, phrasing came out with this kind of licensed music, it's the bomb. I mean, anytime you're like, oh, I don't want to pay X amount for that music, I'm thinking, yeah, well, guess what? You wouldn't want to spend 5 hours making your own
putting it together yourself.
Right.
Yeah, boy, I remember those days, and thank God for Power Music and everybody else at this point.
Yeah, for sure. So do the 32 count music, practice to the music, consider beats per minute, because different formats are going to require different beats per minute. And AFAA even gives you guidance and direction on what is a safe beat per minute per modality that you're going to teach. And that's the other thing that's going to help you to decide, if you're super quick on your feet, you're beat driven, you like to move fast, then you're going to kind of be able to determine your modality. But if you're more guided with your intention and your instruction, maybe you're going to teach a slower format. But musicality is huge. So and for me, I develop my choreography with my music, so that I hear my music and then it inspires me, and then it kind of helps me develop my choreography.
Yeah, I've done the same, and really kind of trying to listen to that music and to find out where those choruses are and the verses. And if you sometimes in your choreography, and keeping it simple, like maybe every verse that comes up, you're doing the same choreography, and people learn it a little bit quicker. They feel more successful in class. And let's face it, it's less for you to memorize.
Yeah, because even if people have no semblance of an idea of what a verse is, like you said, what they do is they make those connections, because music really affects us here and it affects us here. So they make those connections that every time they hear that, they're going to move a certain way, even if they don't know what it is. So consider your modality, consider musicality. And one last thing on modality is, even if you start out with something like, I'm going to start out a boot camp instructor, that's great. Get your feet wet, get strong in that format, build your confidence as a leader, but then consider the opportunity to step outside of your comfort zone. Because I think that the best thing that ever happened to me in group fitness was to continually step outside of my comfort zone and to fall flat on my face many, many times. I mean, I was never your kickbox girl, but there were times I subbed kickboxing classes and it was like, we should probably not redo that experience. So, expand your modalities, step out of your comfort zone so that you stay in the industry for a long time without getting burnt out.
Yeah. And I think when we step out of our comfort zones and we feel like, kind of like, oh, yeah, no, that we've got to know that that's what some of our members are feeling like when they first get into a class. And we've got to remember sometimes what that frustration is like and have empathy for that individual and even say, oh, yeah, oh my gosh, I remember when I tried, cycling, I couldn't even finish the 45-minute class, so it gives you a connection with the individuals as well.
Yes. And little side note, and hope it adds a little humor, know that the person who is most beat challenged will often stand in the very front, right in your space, because what they really want is they're trying to learn from you and they feel more comfortable being right next to you. So it can get in your space a little bit because they're usually your downbeat. So you're like, do.
Yeah, and I cannot watch that person for the life of me. It just throws me off.
It does. Even after all these years, that person always is like, oh, please stop hijacking my attention. So the other thing that we want to talk about is program design and choreography. And I did a couple of AFAA Angie's Tips blogs on these. Well, they're actually video blogs on these. And hopefully Greg can put these in the comments. But I did a series on how to create choreography. And Linda will remember this because we used to teach an AFAA workshop called The Practical Way. And I used to teach university students. I taught university students a class called Methods of Group Fitness. And so what I did was I would make choreography cards. And so every card would be an 8-count move. And then the next card would be an 8-count move. And then the next card. So they would have 4 choreography cards. And then I put 4 people in a group and they had to create a 32-count block. So when I did the AFAA videos, I showed how I do this. And you have to have a transition card in there. But the great thing is that in doing that, it would teach my students, and whether I was teaching an AFAA workshop or whether I was teaching my university students, it would teach them the difference between, say, a 2-count move or a 4-count move or an 8-count move. So I would say, okay, a jumping jack. If you need 8 counts, how many jumping jacks would you have to do? And even me not being very good at math, I'm like 4. Okay, so, and then you would do 4 jumping jacks, and then your next move might be a step touch, and your next move might be a grapevine. And that's how we learn to develop choreography. And I would then turn on the music, and then first we would practice each 8-count move, teaching it line by person by person. Then we would turn on the music and teach 32-count blocks of choreography. And then I would put all my students together. And by the end of class, we will have created an entire class. It was so exciting.
Yeah. And actually we are still doing that with our live workshops, teaching that 32 count. And I'm actually handing them some, so it's kind of already done, kind of like you did, Angie. And then kind of make them as a group come up with their own 32 count. So they don't feel like after the workshop, they just have this one thing, but now we've taught the skill on how to do that in the future.
Yeah. So let's go through one, just like, let's say we start with a step touch. So,
okay.
There would be 4 step touches. Give me a next move.
Let's do jumping jacks.
Okay. So then there'd be 4 jumping jacks.
Yes.
So then maybe the next move, we'll go really old school. We'll just walk forward for 4, back for 4. Okay.
Yep.
What are we going to do for a transition? I was thinking jumping jacks could be the transition, but we already said jumping jacks. So what's a transition move to get us on the next foot?
I would do quarter jumps around.
Okay. So you would do 4 of those, right?
I would do 4. Yep. Each one
so
2 counts.
Yep. So then you'd repeat it on the left leg, and you would just do 4-step touches, and then 4 jumping jacks, and then walk forward and back 1 time. And then you would end with your quarter jumps. Yep. And then in order to really milk that, you could do it to 4 corners of the room. You know, the next time you could add arms. So that was one of the things that, you know, we taught in that workshop, and that I taught my university students, is keep milking it. And so it's amazing, because you should only need, like, maybe, depending if it's an hour class, maybe 8 blocks of choreography at the most, right? Because by the time you're adding in all these different supplemental moves, or going to different corners of the room, right?
Right. And, you know, maybe you're not teaching just that, you know, 32 count, but you're teaching just 16 for a while, and then adding 1 more for the 24, and then adding 1 more for the 32. So there's a lot of ways to be teaching that 32 count combination. It doesn't have to be all at once, again, depending upon how complex it is.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us to, you know, start simple and then build on.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, you can even do like a pyramid up and a pyramid down, add another, you know, another repetition, and then on the way down. Yeah. Reduce your repetition. So, so we already talked about use the music as inspiration, do the, you know, building blocks, start with 1 exercise, build an intensity and complexity. We talked about using the note cards, and do this for strength training too. You know, pick a base move like a squat, and then think about progressions and regressions. And then what would be the thing that you could add to a squat? You know, you could do squats across the room. Maybe your next move could be a lunge, and then you add an overhead press. So think about building blocks with strength training as well, because we want our strength training exercises to make sense, and we want them to progress in a safe, effective way, right?
Absolutely. And the way you put that strengthening portion together could be opposing muscle groups. It could be similar muscle groups. It could go upper body, lower body, and switch back and forth. So I have one of my workshops is called choreographed conditioning. And just to kind of help people think about, okay, and what muscle groups am I using? And then, okay, like for squats, well, what if I told you to utilize a BOSU? Or what if I asked you to use a kettlebell? Like, how could you make a squat different with just changing a piece of equipment?
I love that. Changing a piece of equipment, also changing base of support, right? Because adding the BOSU, changing your base of support.
Right.
And so I love that, just changing a piece of equipment. The other one is changing your body position.
Yes.
So, right. I love those. Those are all really good ones. So consider, you know, exercise selection, consider order of exercises, consider how many sets, how many reps, you know, consider those acute variables, your body position, all those things.
Right.
And then when you're doing, you know, when you're doing the choreography and you're doing a cardio type of class, consider using those note cards, because those are really, really effective.
Yeah. And it's no shame having them in class. I've even seen people just put the notes right up on the mirror. The directors sometimes aren't thrilled, so don't use tape, but you can post. And for some people, your participants, they actually like to know what's coming up.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. That used to be such a taboo, right? Oh, don't let them see your notes. I'm like, are you kidding? So, because when I taught step, and I taught a lot of, you know, complex step patterns, I always had my notes, and often I never referred to them. And so you could call it, you know, a crutch, because often I never even needed them, but the safety of knowing that they were there. But I agree with you, more and more now, there's more clubs and formats, and it's the norm to have the exercises written on the mirror or on a whiteboard, and it's now become the norm. And so I don't think anybody is thinking, oh my gosh, she wrote the choreography down.
This way they know that you've prepared.
Exactly. To me, it's a sign of I came here prepared and prepped, and you know, I'm ready for you all. So the next thing that we want to talk about, we talked about the modality and the musicality, and then the program design and choreography. The last piece of the puzzle is cueing. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to go so far as to say, I'm not sure I care what your choreography is. I care if you can cue it. Because if you can't tell me where I'm going safely and effectively, I don't care how spicy and how crazy your choreography is. If I can't follow it, I'm not going to like your class. You have to make me feel successful. And you do that by being a really, really, really strong cuer.
Yeah.
And so this is another one. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, not only feeling successful, but to feel safe, like I'm not going to get injured. I really need to understand what you want me to do and what position to be in.
Exactly. And this is another one where I did a kind of a two-part series on cueing. I've done more than one Angie's tip on cueing, and I'm going to have, hopefully Greg can put those up there as well. Just like 3 tips to master the art of cueing. And one of the things that I talk about is, as far as I'm concerned, cueing is kind of broken down into 3 main points. You cue direction. Where are they going? Are they going forward? Are they going back? Are they going left? Are they going right? You cue education. Why are they doing this? What muscle group are they using? What do you want them to get out of this? They don't just need to know where they're going. They need to know education. Why do you want them to do this exercise that to them might seem kind of crazy? And then the last one is motivation. They want to be driven to do this exercise. And I know sometimes we're like, how can we get all 3 of those in? But I'm gonna give you a little tip for that. So if you cue direction and you're going to stay left, right, you're done with that cue. Until you change direction, you don't have to use it. You've already educated them on why they're doing it. So maybe you're doing this for a period of repetitions and you need some more cues. Now's the time for motivation. Now's the time to say, come on, you guys, you look amazing. Let's keep this up. What do you think, Linda?
Absolutely. Because again, if you're going right or left, that's about it. And you know, I'll even sometimes point or say, go to the clock, go to the door, because, you know, if somebody's dyslexic or don't know, or if you're even facing your class, your right is their left. So you've got to remember. So sometimes I'll even give somewhere within the room, but cueing can be difficult, especially getting the timing down. I find for new instructors, it just takes practice.
Mm-hmm. It really does. And that's why I say I think cueing is kind of like the meat of the matter, right? Because it is about safety. It is about the education and the motivation and all those things. Your choreography can be amazing, but man, if you can't cue it and nobody feels successful, or you put people at risk because you haven't cued on time, right? So I always say, another thing that I talked about in those Angie's tips was, if you say 1, you're done, man. If you say 1, they're running into each other, right? So it's like 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, step, touch. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, great, fine. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, good job. But you can't get to 1 because at 1, it's too late. They don't know where they're going. Yeah. So, you know, like the cue before you do is a really, really, really big one. And as far as like to your point on pointing to different directions in the room, I produced a senior fitness video and I had 3 background exercisers and, you know, who are all in their 70s. And so, you know, we face a camera on a professional set and there are no mirrors on this set. And so when I was working with them, I said, you guys, you know, my back is going to be to you and we are all going to be facing the camera. And what I need you to do is, for the next X amount of weeks, I want you to walk around your house and go right, left, but be on the opposite leg. And so the way that I really prepared them was, instead of saying right or left, I pointed. Okay, we're going to go toward the clock. We're going to go toward the kettlebells. And that's how I really got them to feel successful in that, because it is hard to reverse lead.
It really is. And sometimes when I'm teaching the workshops, I'll have them count down from 8, just like you did it on 2 and 1. I just say this. Yes. It gets them in there. It. But another way that somebody can practice is, you know, have the music going and cue somebody through your choreography without moving. Like, you personally have to just verbally cue and see what they actually do and if they get it. And that might help you kind of figure out if your cues are right on.
I love that. That's a great one. Absolutely. And just practice your cues in your car as you're driving. Play your music and practice your cues as you're driving. That's a huge one, because timing is everything. Timing's everything in life, you know, but timing is really everything. When you are leading large groups of people in movement, trust me, they don't want to run into each other. So let's talk about verbal and nonverbal cues. And let's start with nonverbal, because I always have a good time with this one. And I did this one in the Angie tips. I mentioned that, if you scratch your booty, they're going to scratch their booty.
Yeah.
Okay. So whatever you do, they're going to do. If you are very much a nonverbal cuer and you are handsy, whatever you do, they're going to do. And, if you do this, they're going to do this. And so be careful with your nonverbal cues.
It is kind of a fun. It's almost like a silent Simon Says.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of fun to see how good you are at it, right?
Yep.
But with the nonverbal, I broke my arm some years back, and I had my arm in a sling, and I still was like, I'm gonna teach step. And so I was kind of incapacitated. And so I had to be so on par with my verbal. And it was like, I was better with my verbal than ever before. I was on it, because when you take away something, the other things kick in, right? And you become stronger in that. So sometimes it might even be good. Yeah, tie your hands behind your back and practice verbal. And then practice not being able to speak and only use visual, and really hone in on the differences between the two. What do you think?
Absolutely. And again, with some of the workshops, I'll have people cue with their participant in front of them, and just kind of going through and doing that verbal cue, and then flip it, and the two people face each other, and the instructor can't speak, but they can only use their hand signals to get that other person to do their choreography. It's kind of fun to watch.
I love it. Yeah, I love that. That's a good one. And you know what's funny is way back when I filmed my first fitness video in 2007, and I remember I showed my footage to somebody as I was practicing, and she's kind of an expert in the field, and she's like, you talk way too much. She wasn't even nice about it. And she said, you need to cue as a command. And she was right. I was too wordy. Now we're gonna, or next we're gonna, or, a lot of superfluous words that I realized then, after all those years of teaching, I was over talking. All I really needed to do is to cue as the command. Less is more. A couple of words, go now, step right. Right?
Absolutely. And, with people teaching numerous classes every day, you've got to save your voice, and, hopefully using a microphone if it's available. But yeah, you've just got to save your own voice. But, they just don't want to listen to you the whole time either. Right. They want to concentrate on their own movement and just, listening for those really key components you're giving them.
Right. Cue as a command, less is more, is in as short and succinct of a way as humanly possible. So again, if direction's not changing, leave it alone. If, education, you've already told them why and how, leave it alone. A few words of motivation, you've got it, whatever it might be, but we don't have to do super long sentences and give a long narrative. Another one that I said is cue down, not up.
Yeah. Right. Because, people will start counting 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, are we doing 100? How do I know? Do I keep pushing if I know I've got 2 more? But absolutely, if you count down, people know where their endpoint is. And that is really important.
Yeah, it is. Because otherwise it's infinity, and people really do want to know. And then also, counting is not cueing. I think that a lot of times instructors get caught up in the counting game. 8, 7, 6, 5, but counting is not cueing. Remember, we want to cue with a purpose. We want to cue to give direction or motivation or education, and counting's not cueing. It's just counting.
Yeah, it's counting, and it tells them where they're going to end, but I'm pretty sure they can count down from 8 probably better than most instructors, because we don't.
Because we're not very good at counting, are we? Right? And so the other thing we said was face the class and make eye contact.
Yeah. And that's sometimes hard to do, to face the class. And again, because you've got that directional thing going on, but definitely it gives you much better eye contact, and just a little smile, a little wink, or a nod that when you're cueing the educational things, but a little cue to somebody that, I'm watching you and you're doing an awesome job.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about how to put it all together. So, you've designed your choreography, you've practiced your class, you remember, now what? So we're going to talk about the 5 components and key instructional practices. So do you want to talk about the 5 components?
Sure. So when you're starting the class, you've got your intro. You're coming in, you're introducing yourself, you're giving a nice overview of what they should expect from the class. You're telling them what equipment they want to get, and maybe even being specific about, use a little lighter weight than you normally do in class. Or maybe you're telling them a lighter weight because we're doing shoulders today rather than legs. So you have that intro portion to them. And then you have your movement prep. And that component, you're really looking at your self-myofascial release. You're going to do some core work as well as balance. And again, this is where the NASM Edge app gives you lots of ideas if that's not your area of specialty. So once you've gotten through that movement prep area, then you're really looking into the body of your workout. So whether you're doing conditioning, whether you're doing cardio, whether you're throwing them together, that's the body of your workout. That's probably going to take the longest section of the course. And then you have your transition. So you've got some self-myofascial release again. You might be doing some static stretching or some dynamic stretching in there. And then you have the outro. Really is just the opposite of your intro, but you're saying, thanks for coming. You did a great job. Look at everything that you got accomplished. Thanks so much for coming, and I appreciate you being here. Your time is valuable. And it's really your wrap up, and it gives you some time to make some closer connections with people. Maybe you're going directly to them and saying, nice class, or I watched one instructor one time and I really loved it. At the end of every one of her classes, and she had packed classes, she would go around and high five everybody before they left, which I thought
probably
was
not going to do it. Oh, sorry. What's that?
Yeah, I thought it was a nice tip, but you're right. Probably not doing that for a while. But,
right.
Yeah.
So we'll that's perfect. Thank you. I love the way you described all of those. That's perfect. So we'll whip through this last part because I know that we were going to try to keep this right around 45 minutes, and it looks like we're headed right there. So the last part is just instructional practices. Coming to class prepared and prepped and practice, right? That's huge. Practice with your kids. Practice to yourself in the mirror. Just go over it and over it, over it. You cannot be too prepped and prepared and practice. And keep in mind, I guess I'm on a P roll right now, but keep in mind that you need to have presence, and there's a positive attitude and a person of integrity. So when I taught a class, I called these the 5 Ps of professionalism. So that's my Ps. Okay. And then be a person of integrity. Make sure your actions and your words are congruent with your mission, whatever that mission might be. And I hope it's to reach people and make them want to come back for more. So how about the next one, Linda?
So coming in, you want me with your Ps? No, here we go. Greet your participants. Sorry about that. So as your participants are coming in the door, sometimes even just being at the door, you don't have to be at the front of the room before class starts, and getting to know them really personally and something about them, again, just helps them really stay attached to you. And it's a little easier to get them motivated too, the more you know them. I even found saying to somebody, oh my goodness, that color looks awesome on you. Just puts them in a little bit better. Okay, yeah, here we go. So greeting them really warmly and sincerely.
Yeah, for sure. And that goes along with be authentically you. The other thing that I talk about is leave your stuff at the door. And so when you walk in that group fitness room, I've said on other episodes, I've been crying on my way to class. I've had, stuff hit the fan on my way, but I always leave it at the door. I always, be a good compartmentalizer, pack it away until you walk away, because we really want to show up as being our best for our participants. And then, take command of your class, be a leader, try not to apologize. I used to be a sorry girl, sorry. And I had a director say to me, no, you're not. No, you're not. And I was like, but I am. She's like, no, you're not. If you make a mistake, you don't need to be sorry. You simply either joke about it and acknowledge it. So you take the elephant out of the room, or you just pretend like it didn't happen because they won't even know. Memorize names. And then last but not least, just be authentically you, like Linda was saying. Be you, the best you that you can be, because you're the reason why they're coming, right?
Absolutely. And we talked about initially in the beginning about going to other people's classes and taking, styles or things that you like from them. And as long as that's part of who you really are and it's a way to incorporate it, absolutely, just really be yourself.
Yeah. And then last but not least, capture what you do on camera. So I did Angie's tips on how to, what did I call it? Number one test to see if you're a good instructor. And really the number one test was put yourself on video and then watch yourself teaching, because you will, and then if you really, if you feel pretty broad shouldered, give it to somebody who's very, who you really trust and admire and is a good mentor, and ask them to give you critique. Okay. Positive, constructive criticism, and so that you can learn from it. But definitely videotape yourself. If your club will allow, you can videotape a live class, but if not, videotape yourself at home and really have somebody critique that, because honestly, watching yourself on video is hands down a great learning tool.
Absolutely. And even taking that, if you feel a little funny, just taping yourself, like grab your friends or your neighbors or family that don't really care how much you mess up while you're practicing or things like that. And when you're good, they're gonna tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. So practice. So basically that was it, how to go from I'm certified, now how do I get out on that classroom floor? Because all too often I hear instructors tell me, I got my certification, but I'm scared to start teaching. And all that just breaks my heart, because I really want you out there. I really want you to feel successful. So, where do you go for quality information? How do you begin creating a class, and how to put it all together? So I hope that you really enjoyed this webinar. I hope you share it with your friends, and let's get the world out there teaching our fitness classes and inspire people to love what they do. So I'm Angie Miller. Linda Magee, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Had a great time.
All right, awesome. And then you can email me. I'm Angie at angiemillerfitness.com. My website's angiemillerfitness.com if you have any questions. And then Linda, how about you?
My email is linda.magee, and it's Magee @hotmail.com, or you can go right to my website, lindamageefitness.com.
Okay, fantastic. So thanks a lot, you guys. Have an amazing Friday. Take good care of yourselves. Smile, laugh, have fun, and go out and enjoy some fitness. See you next time.